Fabulous Designs takes you to the four corners of the planet to discover the world's most extraordinary homes. Whether an open savanna, on a deserted island, high in the mountains, in the city center, or even in the heart of a natural reserve, these out-of-the-ordinary properties fascinate for not only their originality, design, and story, but also for being at the forefront of ecology. Evoking wonder, inspiration, and surprise, meet those responsible for their conception and walk through the doors of these homes that you've always dreamed of visiting on a private tour that'll take your breath away. Welcome to the fabulous world of design. Today, Fabulous Designs takes you to Namibia to visit a luxurious eco-lodge built in the heart of the desert. And then to France to discover a very contemporary and atypical Breton house. But first, let's head a little further north to the United Kingdom to discover one of the largest tropical greenhouses in the world. We're in Cornwall, in southwest England, a region characterized by its rugged coastline and wild nature. This rural area was disrupted for over a century by the mining industry and its giant open-pit quarries. It was in one of the last clay pits still in operation until the mid-1990s that Tim Smith set out to build an extraordinary project. Between futurism and exoticism, more than 6 years of work went into the creation of this unique botanical garden, the Eden Project.
Sustainability is a funny thing because a lot of people talk about it, usually boring men in suits talk about it, and what they mean is, let's talk about carbon. That's all they mean, let's talk about carbon, and it's pathetic. Because actually sustainability is about the way you employ people, the way you work together. It's about the way you trade.
The Eden Project greenhouses are home to more than 5,000 plant and flower species from all over the world, making it the largest indoor tropical forest in the world. So, how do we revive land that has been abused and polluted by industrial activity and turn it into an exemplary model of sustainable development? What materials do we use to make giant eco-friendly greenhouses? How do we create exotic climates thousands of miles away from their native land? And how do we use them as an educational model to raise awareness of the vital role nature plays in keeping our world balanced? Tim Smith believes that with the Eden Project, he has built a new wonder of the world.
I thought it'd be great to build a place that when you came there, you would feel as if you'd gone to somewhere that would take you out of everyday life. In Britain, there is a phrase called putting something into good heart, which means restoring something back to good health. And all my life, I've been interested in repairing things, mending things, and this place was perfect because it was poisonous.
But before conceptualizing this innovative place, Tim Smith lived several other lives. As a young graduate, he embarked on a career as an archaeologist, then radically changed course to work in the music industry for over 10 years. After leaving his life in London to settle in Cornwall at the end of the 80s, he rediscovered his love for plants and botany. The lunar landscape of the former quarries provided the perfect land for the plant conservatory, with environmental concerns at the center of its mission.
Once humans start to believe they can mend even the most damaged places, they feel hopeful, because I think the battles over the next 15, 25 years are all going to be about people rising up and saying, enough, we've got to heal this land, because if we don't heal the land, we will starve.
To set up his project, Tim Smith obtained funding from the European Union, a boon for this region of England, which was long neglected by public authorities. As for construction, only a handful of architects were, in Tim's eyes, capable of bringing his vision to life. He called on Nicholas Grimshaw, designer of the first Eurostar station at London's Waterloo, known for his modern designs and his expertise in using increasingly innovative material.
We went to see Nick and we said, this is absolutely true, we said, we'd love to invite you to build the eighth wonder of the world, but the bad news is we can't pay you. We said goodbye, and I never expected to hear from him again. I really didn't. And then we got phoned up the following day, and the whole gang had agreed to work for nothing until we managed to get the funding. And they are also very playful people, which is, quite a lot of architects like black and white and sharp edges and whatever, but they were prepared to be softer and more rounded. And this place is inspired by the natural world, not the unnatural world.
Tim was very taken with the idea of it not being a conventional kind of formal building, not a monumental greenhouse, but a kind of organic form that clung onto the cliff face, like bubbles or like various plants produce kind of foam or whatever. So it had a very curvy and organic sort of feel to it. I think we found flexibility in the geometry to make it able to take the building forms we wanted it to. The amount of energy we used, of course, was critical because we're trying to create a tropical atmosphere in an area which freezes in the winter. We had to make the roof very well insulated and use as little actual power as we could and gain as much from solar power as we could. So everything about the building is pretty sustainable.
Before the doors to this horticultural heaven were opened, it went through radical transformation. Without further excavation, while retaining the topography of the former mine, more than 85,000 tons of soil were moved to cover the polluted soil and make it fertile. For the overall structure, local materials were favored, yet limited in quantity as much as possible. It was a huge challenge reducing CO2 emissions when working on a particularly uneven site. The clay remains were used in construction, the wood was recycled, and everything was built leaning against the hill. Nicholas and his team of architects were able to make the most of the Earth's natural heat to stabilize the temperature throughout the building. Inside the biomes, the nickname for these 8 monumental bubbles of almost 3 hectares, there are 2 climates. On one side, there's a Mediterranean greenhouse with fruit trees and an olive grove. And on the other, there's a tropical forest with exotic species imported from botanical gardens and research centers around the world. And the Eden Project continues to grow. An educational center is the latest building to open its doors.
We're now in the Mediterranean biome. It's a very, very sparse structure, and it's glazed with plastic instead of glass. And because it's glazed with plastic, it means that it's not heavy and we can use much less steel. So the whole structure weighs about the same as the air inside it. And the plastic that is here is called ethyl tetrafluoroethane. It's like the Tefal on a frying pan. It's non-stick, so you don't get any dust on it. You can clean it, stays clean. And the most important thing about it is that all the UVB light comes through, so the plants grow like they're outside. It's incredibly strong. When they reckon that you could have a snowdrift 6 foot thick on it and it would be no problem. And it's also doesn't require much heating. In fact, you could say that here, this is a really, really big umbrella. This is the Mediterranean. We don't really need to heat it. We just need to keep the rain off. The plastic is in 3 layers, like bubble wrap. So it's very, very warm.
And as with all good bioclimatic buildings, the Eden project is south-facing. The architects used cross-ventilation to cool the greenhouses and ensure the flow of fresh air to prevent overheating. Everything is devised to limit energy expenditure, which is particularly important for this type of project. Although CO2 emissions are reduced every year, Gus and his teams are now increasing their efforts to switch to 100% renewable energy.
The cooling system is, if you look up in the ceiling, you can see that there are petals. These open up like a flower and the hot air goes straight out. The heating system at the moment is gas, but in the future that we hope that the whole biomes will be heated by geothermal energy. We will get from the depths of the earth about 4.5 kilometers down, and that'll heat the biomes and produce all the electricity that the project needs. Water is a really big deal. The big deal in Cornwall, though, is usually that we have too much of it. So it is a very, very big issue for us, but we capture the water to water the plants. And we also use it for flushing all the toilets on site. So we use very little drinking water from the mains.
A true giant ecolab. The Eden project is also almost self-sufficient in water, a vital resource for its 2 million plants.
I don't think anyone at first thought this was going to work. It's 250 miles from London. Cornwall's quite remote, really, and I think there was a real question as to whether people would come. The idea at Eden was to have a kind of real slice of jungle, so a proliferation of plants, what he called a population of plants, so that they could cross-pollinate and interact with each other, just like they would in their natural state.
10 years after its opening, Tim Smith's crazy idea came to fruition. The Eden Project has welcomed more than 16 million visitors, making it one of the most important tourist attractions in Great Britain.
When we first came, hardly any of this was grown. So they were just in the first year when we came, first 6 months, it was very basic. You know, all the trees and everything, all the plants were this size, and a lot of the trees in some of the domes were not very big, but you know, in 10, 15 years, everything has just got huge. It just shines a light on an opportunity that we should all be looking after the world, looking after each other, thinking a bit more about the animals and the plant life, and not just tarmacking everything, and not just building more houses and more places for us. I think it's fantastic that people can come to somewhere like this, with children, with adults. We all get something out of it. There is a lot of education for people who come and have a look round. I think I'm halfway there already, perhaps, and I learn a bit more every time I come. Yeah.
We're outside the core building, which is our education building. When Eden was first built, we thought we were going to have about 750,000 visitors a year, and we got 1.8 million. So we needed a new education building, and this is it. It's based on the Fibonacci sequence, which is in a lot of the mathematics of nature. So if you think about a pineapple or a pine cone, that spiral sequence is the inspiration for this building. When we were building this building, we realized that nobody was really talking about metals in the supply chain all that much. And although recycling is good, it's also really important to think about where the metals come from in the first place. So part of this project was to have a roof that came from one mine in one place, and that we knew that the mine was a good mine. The solar panels on the top help us a little bit with the electricity, but quite frankly, not nearly enough, which is why we need to build the geothermal project. The palette of materials is very carefully thought through. So every material is assessed for its sustainability. And every time we do a new building, we try to push the sustainability a little bit further. So whether it's a waste policy or whether it's the inclusion policy to make sure that people who find it difficult to get around can get around more easily, or it's whatever it is, every time we push and push and push, and we'll never stop pushing.
The core building was constructed from pre-used materials that would normally be thrown away. Inside, the floor and walls are made from concrete, clay, and recycled glass, while responsibly sourced wooden beams make up the entire structure.
I wish that the world was better at understanding that sustainability isn't something that is about, eating muesli and wearing sandals. It's actually about a way of living in the future. And the sooner that future comes, the better.
Innovative and extraordinary, the Eden Project is a real success. The Eden Project employs 500 staff and has brought tourism and economic growth to the whole of Cornwall. Over time, it has become the example to be followed for plant conservation and environmental awareness. On the strength of the English model, Tim Smith has just entered into several partnerships in Canada, China, and Australia to export his know-how. We should expect the first to open in the next 2 years. Another destination, another ambiance. This time we're off to Africa to visit luxurious eco-lodges built in the middle of the Namib Desert, a setting that will take your breath away. In Namibia, 400 kilometers south of the capital Windhoek, we visited the largest private nature reserve in Africa, Namib Ran. Amid 90,000 hectares of red sand and hidden amongst disconcertingly beautiful dunes are the eco-lodges. But how do we build sustainably in the middle of the desert? How do we obtain water and electricity while remaining respectful towards the environment and preserving the site's original state? These are the questions Stefan Bruckner and his team had to answer in order to build woolwedans, environmentally friendly, comfortable cabins perfectly integrated into nature. Stefan's father, Albie Bruckner, bought these lands 20 years ago, making it his mission to preserve them at all costs. He passed down his forward-thinking vision to his son, tourism with protecting the surrounding landscape at its heart.
When I was a kid, like 13, 14, I used to come here with my father. I mean, this was wild, there was nothing. And about 10 years later, the decision was taken to start some kind of commercial activity to earn an income for conservation. Then I had just finished my studies in Berlin and I had my master's, and I actually wanted to do an international jet set career, and I got a famous phone call from my father and he said, don't you want to start tourism there? And it wasn't quite what I planned, but I thought, this land is so strong and it's so fascinating and it's such a great opportunity. And it's maybe in the end also a bit of a responsibility to help my father start something. It was never a decision to make the hotel sustainable. It was just a sensible decision. How do we go about this? And then one day I was standing in the dunes and the wind was blowing quite strong and I had a cooler box in the sand and I was just checking what the wind was doing, you know, and without me touching the cooler box, it started to collapse because the wind took the sand away and it dug a hole and the cooler box fell. And then I knew, okay, we can't build something like a solid structure with brick because this is what's going to happen. So whatever we do must be on top of the wind and on top of the sand. That's how the poles came. So we had wooden poles and a wooden platform, and on top of those we pitched the igloos.
There are 4 camps spread out across the reserve, all different sizes and with different characteristics. The Boulders camp, hugged by mountains of rocks. The private camp, the most intimate with only 3 cabins. A few miles further, perched on the edge of a sand dune, lies the dune camp, and lastly, the dune lodge, the largest of the camps with 10 cabins. To minimize the environmental footprint on the site, they were all built out of wood, a first for carpenter Leon.
In Namibia, wood is quite new because in the past we only used brick and masonry. Then with a new way of thinking, going green, the tourism industry brought along the concept of building with wood and canvas, which is easily constructed. We don't use any artificial products for our building because the location, the transport and everything is difficult. So we just use wood. Yeah, it's eco-friendly, it's softer, it's more actually fun to work with it because you can do different types every time.
Selma, manager of the Dune Lodge, takes us to one of the cabins.
This is a normal double room for 2 persons. You feel connected when you are in this room. Look at it. So if you have your bed there and you look, everything around you is open and you see nicely the dunes, you see the oryxes. Some of them like just to be on the water all on the other side. Some come closer by to the chalets as well. The canvas is a very, very good material because it's wind resistant and it's also water resistant. Pretty strong material that many also people use for camping. We only have a wonderful natural air conditioning. That's where these beautiful friends come in handy. You can open them up nicely and that way the wind circulates through the whole room and you stay cool for the whole night or the whole afternoon.
The cabins have also been designed to be fully self-sufficient in energy. The solar panel on the roof provides the necessary electricity. There's also a solar water heater at the entrance of each cabin, which supplies the bathroom.
So this is our bathroom. For the shampoo, the shower gel, we only use the bottled container. So we refill it instead of using plastic that can be replaced every day.
In the middle of the 4 camps is the hotel village. There you'll find staff accommodation and all the technical equipment. When living in dry land, saving water is one of the main concerns. Even in open desert, there are solutions. The team has managed to find a clean water source that they use every day.
It looks like nothing here, but where I'm standing now is probably the most important thing at Wolvedans. It's really an art to find the right spot because the water is running in volts and it can maybe only be 2 meters wide or maybe 5 meters, sometimes just 1 meter. And if you drill, you need to find it. We also don't know where the water comes from. It could be from the big Lossberg mountain, it could be from much further away. We don't know what's going on down there.
The water is 132 meters deep and must be monitored daily in order for the hotel to adapt its consumption. To avoid leakage or waste, the pipes are maintained regularly. They also had to think about wastewater management.
Managing our wastewater is actually as important as managing the fresh water. So all the water from the village, from the entire village, is coming together here. Then it goes through a 3-chamber system, and then it gets pumped into that, we call it an aerobic tower. So the water is pumped up and then it flows through ligaments. And there's bacteria that take the bad stuff away. But most importantly, we add oxygen to the water just to bring life back to the water. And that water we use for all gardening, not the plants we eat, but trees, hedges, lawns. That is all done with wastewater. I think as long as you are connected to a national power grid, you can argue your way out of going solar. But in our case, where the next power line is probably 150 kilometers away, we only have 2 options. The one is, which is unfortunately still happening a lot in most places, you run a generator from morning till late, 12 hours a day, or maybe even 24 hours a day, and you burn a lot of diesel, and it's also very expensive. Or you do the right thing and you invest into solar.
Before the solar panels were installed, gas-powered generators operated almost 12 hours per day. This investment has reduced their usage to just 3 hours, a figure that the hotel intends to further improve over the next few years.
We started off with phase 1, which was 36 kilowatt, and then we upgraded already once to provide power for the laundry. So currently we're at 45 kilowatts of solar power generation during the day, and the ultimate aim is actually to almost double that. This is basically the battery banks where we keep the power stored, and then the batteries drain down during the night, and then the next morning they are charged again. We worked out that our investment into renewables will amortize in 4.5 years. So it's almost actually paid for itself. Renewable energy is very expensive. It doesn't help you have to put in too many solar panels to operate old-fashioned, old technology, for instance, refrigeration equipment. This chest freezer takes 1.4 kilowatt of energy, whereas the new one, which is the same size, only uses about 350.
We've been amazed at just how remote it is, but just how beautiful. It's really at the end of the world. You've got views for thousands of miles, and we're at the edge of the desert, which is quite incredible. So we had no idea where we would actually be located. And so we drove for 20 kilometers thinking, why would anyone build a hotel this far away? And then we had to drop the car off, and then another 6K up the hill. And then we got here, and then we realized that's why it's so far away, because it's so beautiful here, and it's magnificent.
At night, candles and solar lamps charged during the day take over. It's an efficient way to limit the lodge's energy consumption. The hotel has many green initiatives, one of which is to prove that it's possible to grow vegetables 100% organically in the middle of the desert. Avid gardener Harunga studied agriculture before coming to work at the reserve 3 years ago. The garden is open to everyone. Staff and guests can therefore meet and discuss the hotel's approach. This is a way of raising awareness of where our food comes from.
The guests are quite very surprised when they see a garden as green as this one in the middle of the desert. For us, it is also to make them understand so that they can take it back home. Their reaction is quite very positive. It could be an example to Namibia having such an operation, and we're also seeing that some other places have also started the same initiative, which is also a very good sign for us, and as a country, it will be a big benefit.
We don't really see ourselves as owners of the place. You know, we see ourselves as caretakers. We obviously hope that it can be passed on to the next generation. He's been here walking around in the dunes as a baby, you know, and he's obviously growing up with Namibia in the dunes and this life. And I think it's not something you will ever throw away because it's very strong.
The hotel plans to develop its education programs and is expected to welcome twice as many students in the coming years. Its story and success are proof that this method works. It's a model that should inspire many to conserve these wild and isolated places. We're leaving Namibia and returning to Europe, more precisely to France, to discover a Breton house that is far from local standards. While for some people, building ecologically means building ever more efficient houses and establishing them as temples of technology. Others favor the opposite, more simplicity and modesty, whether that be with materials used during construction and planning or simply in their everyday life. The Arlay family reflected on these matters for a long time when they decided to build their house in Crack Brittany a few years ago. A few miles off the Gulf of Morbihan, in a very conservative region, notably when it comes to architecture, they had to fight for their atypical project because here, there are no slate roofs or stone walls, only simple raw materials like wood and sheet metal. Martine, an environmental designer, drew inspiration from her professional experience as well as from her desire to simplify the house's construction, both outside and inside, by adapting her family's way of life.
On entend parler de cet endroit-là, de ce terrain-là, et on vient visiter. Et là, effectivement, je pense qu'il y a un truc qui se passe parce que l'endroit est quand même très particulier. Assez vite, il y a une évidence qui est de l'ordre du si on vient là, on vient se poser. On creuse pas, ça doit être réversible. On vient là et on s'en va, s'il faut.
minimal environmental impact, an important notion for Martine, who was charmed by the area's beauty. Given the area's slope and very moist nature, Martine turned to architect Alexandre Favet. Together, they came up with a very simple solution.
Le bâtiment est décollé du sol impérativement, c'est une prairie humide ici. On cherche déjà pas à commencer à se bagarrer, on va dire, contre les éléments. On fait avec. Donc très simplement, on pose ce bâtiment sur pilotis, on se soucie d'abord du drainage, de la circulation des eaux, on observe beaucoup le bâtiment. On n'est pas dans une logique de maison ossature bois, on est dans une logique de maison avec une ossature, une charpente, ce qu'on appelle autoportante. Donc la structure se tiendrait toute seule, en elle-même, autour duquel on va venir mettre un mur qui est en ossature bois, mais qui correspond plus à ce qu'on appelle une logique de mur manteau, c'est-à-dire que le mur n'est pas porteur, il vient simplement envelopper et isoler la maison.
La charpente est préfabriquée dans un atelier, que ce soit des murs à ossature bois ou des fermes, et on les transporte sur un camion équipé d'une grue auxiliaire, et le montage est fait sur place. Le bâtiment, il est fait avec des matériaux pauvres, c'est-à-dire de la simple planche et puis de la tôle ondulée galvanisée. Mais ils ont été mis en œuvre avec le plus grand soin. Et quand on met en œuvre avec le plus grand soin ce type de matériaux, eh ben c'est très beau à l'arrivée. Et puis on se rend compte que 5 ans après, la tôle elle a patiné, les bois ils ont grisé aux ultraviolets, mais c'est resté beau. Il y a un impact, on va dire, écologique, parce que ce sont des matériaux locaux. Le Douglas, s'il vient pas de Bretagne, il vient de forêts françaises comme le Morvan ou le Limousin. Et puis la tôle, elle est profilée en Bretagne. Et c'est déjà un bien pour l'écologie que les gens, déjà, plutôt qu'une maison traditionnelle en maçonnerie, choisissent une maison en bois et qu'on puisse en voir quelques-uns qui prennent des matériaux d'ici, quoi.
De cet élément de charpente va tout, en fait, découler par la suite. Et on vient, à l'intérieur de ça, construire notre plan, faire notre cloisonnement. Et là aussi intervient un travail de précision, à un moment donné, plus fin, de fil en aiguille, avec Martine, sur tout ce qui est l'aménagement plus mobilier et plus détaillé, on va dire, de l'intérieur.
Humble materials and simple, quick construction keep costs low. Martine also applied this logic to the interior design.
La question se pose toujours de ne pas surajouter des couches, de rajouter de la matière. Ben là, voilà. Donc on choisit un matériau moins impactant, enfin qu'on pense être moins impactant parce qu'il est pratiquement totalement biosourcé, le peuplier. En plus, il a un avantage, c'est qu'il est pas cher, il est plutôt local ou quasi local. En tout cas, c'est pas un bois qui vient de l'autre bout du monde. Et il est mis en œuvre que sur les surfaces où c'est vraiment nécessaire. Sinon, partout, on reste en brut, on est sur des choses brutes. On ne fait pas d'habillage, de masquage. Sur le mobilier, c'est la même approche. Comment est-ce qu'on peut arriver à avoir le moins de déplacement, le moins de transformation, pas de finition, pas de peinture, pas de vernis, d'aller à l'essentiel. Donc d'accepter aussi des mises en œuvre qui vont demander peut-être plus de vigilance ou plus de délicatesse dans l'entretien.
Heating is a comfort that Martine did not want to give up entirely. A heat pump supplies underfloor heating, complemented by a traditional wood-burning stove.
Il y a un paradoxe dans la renonciation, c'est que la renonciation nous met en contact avec des choses inattendues. C'est un plancher chauffant, donc on marche pieds nus dessus. Et en fait, j'ai découvert que marcher pieds nus sur une chape anhydrite est une chose extrêmement agréable. Donc en fait, d'une démarche qui était une démarche de j'ai pas envie de mettre 150 € du mètre carré ou même ne serait-ce que 40 € du mètre carré sur un revêtement qui est pas forcément utile, on débouche sur quelque chose de très agréable qui est on marche pieds nus sur un sol sur lequel finalement on peut faire des tâches, c'est pas bien grave.
Martine wanted the interior to be adaptable, in harmony with our current way of life.
Cette pièce-là est constituée d'un seul volume. Il n'y a pas de cloisonnement, il n'y a pas de séparation. Les séparations sont constituées par des modules de mobilier Ces placards mobiles permettent de changer également la configuration des lieux en fonction soit des époques de l'année, soit de l'état d'esprit dans lequel on est. On est dans un monde qui est en mouvement permanent sur tout un tas de sujets qui fait qu'on peut vivre d'une certaine manière à un instant T. Et puis voilà, mais on le voit, un enfant arrive, 2 enfants, des petits-enfants, la technologie, que sais-je, font qu'on ne vit pas pareil 2 ans, 3 ans, 5 ans, 10 ans après. Et je trouve que par ailleurs, quand on fige les choses par un cloisonnement définitif, je pense qu'on est moins inventif, on est moins créatif.
When it came to decor, the Harley family were especially creative. Passionate about upcycling, Martine has spread lighting and furnishings throughout her house that create a warm, unique atmosphere.
Ici, dans cette maison, les choses, elles se font soit par détournement d'objets. Ça, c'est nos petits amusements à nous. Ici, c'est ici, une lampe bidon. J'avais remarqué qu'en fait, c'était une espèce de blanc laiteux qui produisait une lumière très agréable. Donc, on va faire des lampes avec ça. À force de jeter les bidons de lessive à la poubelle, on finissait par regarder le bidon de lessive. On disait, c'est quand même un peu dommage de jeter ça à la poubelle. On pourrait bien essayer d'en faire quelque chose. Je pense que c'est intéressant de toujours se reposer la question avant de jeter. Est-ce que je ne peux pas trouver une autre vie? Et puis la question de la deuxième vie, de la troisième vie, elle est au centre de la question environnementale. Donc là, on est dans la cuisine. En fait, elle est vraiment constituée de choses qui sont, pour la plupart, souvent détournées. Donc ça, c'est un évier qui est en fait un bac de préparation de béton que j'ai trouvé chez un fournisseur. Les égouttoirs, c'est la même chose en version plus petite. En hauteur, on a un système d'accrochage des ustensiles qu'on utilise au quotidien, qui est en fait un chemin de câble industriel. Voilà. Pareil, c'est plutôt du registre du détournement. Et puis ensuite, fonctionnellement, la cuisine est vraiment organisée de façon à faciliter certains gestes qui étaient importants, notamment le tri sélectif. C'est vraiment un élément central. Mais dans l'aménagement des cuisines, nous, on constate quand même que c'est pas encore suffisamment intégré, à mon sens. C'est-à-dire que ça reste encore un peu compliqué d'avoir le tri sélectif. C'est des petites quantités. Et du coup, on est obligé de vider régulièrement, c'est pas très pratique. Voilà, ici, c'est plutôt généreux.
Everything has been well thought out on the first floor, too. The same raw materials can be found in the rooms, together with upcycled materials, like in the bathroom where the shower is a former sheep trough and the sinks are former construction site trays. Water management is a fundamental challenge in everyday life here, as the house is not connected to running water or sewers. A critical challenge that shaped the project and pushed the eco-design on the road to sanitary self-sufficiency.
En fait, la maison fonctionne sur un système de récupération d'eau. Elle est à 100% sur un système de récupération d'eau. On a une cuve qui ne fait que 5000 litres, ce qui est à la fois beaucoup et finalement assez peu pour le fonctionnement d'une famille, par exemple en été quand il ne pleut pas ou peu. On a de toute façon dans cette maison un rapport à l'eau qui est différent. Le fait de ne pas être accordé, ça amène une valeur à l'eau. Et du coup, les enfants sont dans ce registre-là depuis déjà longtemps. La question de la récupération de l'eau est un élément dynamique de conception architecturale. C'est ce qui explique notamment la forme des toitures, qui sont donc en pente inversée, un peu comme si on avait donné un grand coup sur le fêtage de la maison, pour favoriser la récupération. Donc on a vraiment une surface quasi maximum, donc comme si on était à plat. On récupère la totalité de l'eau, que ce soit l'atelier ou la maison, qui arrive dans une cuve de 5000 litres qui est placée sous la terrasse et qui ensuite est remontée dans la maison avec une pompe et filtrée pour être utilisée. Donc pour la partie assainissement des eaux usées, la maison est raccordée à un assainissement individuel et non pas à l'assainissement collectif. Et donc les eaux usées arrivent par ce biais-là. Donc on a un premier filtre et un bac dégraisseur qui permet de favoriser la mise en place du premier processus chimique pour faire que l'eau qui arrive dans la phyto puisse être nettoyée de manière efficace par l'écosystème qui est derrière vous. Et ça induit également qu'à l'émission de ce qui sort de la maison, on soit vigilant sur ce qu'on absorbe, nous, comme composants, aliments, médicaments, etc. Et puis ce qu'on utilise comme produit pour se laver, produits pour les machines, etc. Il faut trouver des compromis, évidemment. Donc, à l'extrême, on pourrait arriver à produire nous-mêmes nos produits de lavage à partir de cendres. C'est pas très compliqué, ça demande juste du temps. Donc on prend l'eau à un endroit, on l'utilise au même endroit, on la rejette au même endroit. Comme si presque on n'était pas là. Ça serait ça l'idéal. Voilà. Je pense qu'à partir du moment où on prend la décision de construire, se poser la question des arbitrages, de ce qui nous est essentiel, revenir aux choses essentielles et accepter d'abandonner, d'identifier ce qui ne l'est pas et de l'abandonner. Et quelle que soit l'échelle du projet et quel que soit le budget, on peut construire une toute petite maison avec un budget très raisonnable. Le bilan que je fais aujourd'hui de ces 5 années passées dans cette maison-là, c'est qu'elle est absolument en adéquation avec mon mode de vie, je trouve. Elle m'oblige à faire des efforts à des endroits. Elle me rappelle à la nécessité de me réinscrire ou de continuellement réavancer vers l'écosystème dans lequel je suis et je devrais être constamment. Il faut réfléchir, engager un questionnement sur ses besoins personnels, intimes, ceux qui sont essentiels et ceux qui ne le sont pas, je crois, oui.
Martine's gamble paid off. She managed to combine the comfort that a family needs in their daily life with the noble simplicity that she wishes to bring to today's architecture. She has also proven that this model is accessible to all, because if there's an advantage to carrying out a more simplified project, it's the considerable cost reduction. It was therefore necessary to make some sacrifices to achieve this. Although the project is, in her eyes, far from exemplary, it remains in line with her life philosophy.